Good morning, Wabash. Speaking today at Pioneer Chapel will be Josh Massaquoi with his talk titled Passing, and David Leal with his talk titled A Call for Assassins. Joshua is a junior majoring in biology and minoring in education from El Paso, Texas. He serves as the D&I co-chair, Shout vice president, and is a brother of Fiji and the MXI. Josh is a member of the track team and previously worked as a new student orientation mentor. After graduating, he plans on attending nursing school and eventually working as a nurse anesthetist. David is a junior double majoring in psychology and Hispanic studies from Noblesville, Indiana. He serves as the secretary of Kappa Sigma and is the treasurer of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Additionally, he is a member of Shout, a brother of La Alianza, and a part of La Conexión, a subcommittee of HUE. David is currently a Rhine of the Sphinx Club and has previously been a new student orientation mentor. David also works at the La Alianza Latino Community Center, leading English learner conversation tables. After graduating, he plans to provide culturally sensitive mental health services. Let's give a warm welcome to David and Josh.
Good morning, Wabash. Good morning, I'd first like to say thank you to the Sphinx Club for giving me this platform. I'd like to also say thank you to the members of Shout and the Brothers of Fiji. Finally, I want to say thank you to my family for supporting me throughout the process of writing this talk. Today, I'm going to talk about the idea of straight passing and the struggle to fully express yourself. I don't want this talk to serve as another coming out story, although it's the Shout Chapel talk, so I'll touch on it. Mainly, I want to focus on my experience as a queer Black man and offer some advice so you don't have to struggle in becoming the best versions of yourselves. To start, I want to give some background about my upbringing to paint a picture of my life before Wabash. I was born in Pensacola, Florida, as the youngest of four. My father's in the military, and my mom's an English teacher. As a military family, we moved frequently, and by the time I was 12, I had moved from Pennsylvania, Kansas, Alabama, Alaska, California, and finally Texas, where I call my hometown of El Paso. By middle school, when I arrived at Wabash, Luckily, my dad managed to hold off our last move until I graduated high school, to which we finally moved to DC. When I arrived at Wabash, especially after spending the summer in DC, I experienced a bit of a culture shock. Back in high school, most of my friends were girls, so coming here, an all-male environment, was already outside of my comfort zone. On top of that, I'd already been openly bisexual before arriving, so I was concerned about facing the same kind of harassment I endured in high school. Though I was excited to start college, I found myself retreating into the closet, hiding my identity that I had just begun to embrace the year before. My only expression of individuality came through my clothing choices, and even that felt constrained, partially because my closet was crowded by my want to hide myself. As I adjusted to my college life, I started coming out again. Some friends had already caught on, while others didn't suspect anything. I wasn't advertising my sexuality, and when people assumed I was straight, I didn't feel the need to correct them. But comments from those I was out to, like, "You're not actually gay," implying I was less queer for liking women, made me question whether I made my queerness more palatable to others. Stereotypically speaking, I don't fit the mold of what society deems a gay man. I'm not super effeminate or sassy, and for the most part, I do like sports. Because of this, people assume I'm straight or straight passing. One way this passing's manifested was through the way I walked, and I started when my dad taught me his army walk, which was essentially him teaching me how to walk in a masculine manner before I even knew someone could be judged based on how they walked. Looking back, I realized it was more than just a simple lesson in posture. It was one of the first times I was taught to perform masculinity, to move in a way that society deems acceptable for a man. At the time, I didn't understand the deeper implications, but my dad was showing me how to avoid standing out, how to blend in with the expectations of what a man should look like. It wasn't just about walking, it was about teaching me to navigate the world in a way that wouldn't invite scrutiny. As I've gotten older, I've come to see these lessons were a part of a larger pattern. They weren't just random bits of advice, but ways to shield me from judgment of others. These moments were rooted in love and protection from my parents, but also contribute to the internal struggle of whom I was allowed to be. And that's the challenge of so many of us, isn't it? The balancing act between wanting to belong and a deep desire to express who we truly are. On the other side of this, there's the stereotype of being a black man. Society tends to see us as angry, physically threatening, and often hyper-masculinize us. There have often been times where people have looked at me and assumed I couldn't possibly be queer because I didn't look or act the part. I remember my mom, when I was a kid, would tell me not to be so expressive when I talked with my hands or face when I spoke. She wasn't just giving me random advice, she was trying to protect me as well. She knew society always saw black men as overly emotional or aggressive and adding any kind of visible expressiveness, which often associated with femininity or queerness, could amplify those judgments. So I learned early on to tone it down, restrain myself, to make sure that I didn't stand out or appear vulnerable. But this lesson also reinforced the idea that certain forms of expression were off limits. As a black man, it's an unspoken rule. We are men supposed to be stoic, composed, and strong. Any display of emotion or expressiveness, especially gestures or mannerisms that might be seen as feminine, was seen as breaking the rules. Over time, this pressure to conform to an idea of black masculinity not only distanced me from my queerness, but also made me feel like I had to suppress a part of my identity to avoid judgment. As I look back now, it's clear that much of this behavior was a survival mechanism. It was a way to shield myself from the harsh realities of being both black and queer in a world that struggles to accept either. This double bind that walking the line between the two marginalized identities add layers of complexity to the journey of self-acceptance. I even saw this play out in more subtle ways when I was on the football team in high school. During games, the band would sometimes play Beyoncé's Crazy in Love. For me, hearing this was exciting because I like Beyoncé. But I'd often get comments like Beyoncé's just for girls, or why aren't you listening to rap like other black guys? It was frustrating because liking Beyoncé doesn't make me any less masculine, but in their eyes, it did. Those kinds of comments made me feel like I had to hide my interests to fit in a box that people expected from me, both as a man and as a black man. It wasn't just about not liking Beyoncé. It was about conforming to a narrow definition of what being a man meant. And as a queer person, that box felt more suffocating. In high school, when I finally accepted my queerness, I became even more cautious. Being queer meant navigating a world where you could be judged or marginalized. Add the fact I'm black, the pressure to present myself as hyper-masculine or straight became stronger. I had to walk a fine line between my queer identity and the expectations of what a black man should be. There are times when blending in feels comforting, but it becomes another battle when I'm in spaces where queer identities are targeted. A clear example of this was during my freshman year, during pledge trip. One of my pledge brothers had said homophobic remarks about another one of my pledge brothers while in conversation with me. At the time, I wasn't out to my fraternity, but I had come out to the pledge brother who was being targeted. In that moment, I had two choices: stay silent, blend in, or stand up for someone who wasn't there to defend themselves. In that moment, choosing to speak up meant indirectly outing myself and risking judgment in an environment where I was still trying to fit in. But staying silent meant condoning homophobia, and that didn't sit right with me. It was a tug-of-war between my desire for safety and my commitment to authenticity. Ultimately, I chose to stand up. In moments like these, I realized how essential compassion is, and that compassion isn't just empathy. It's about creating a safe space for others and yourself. My sister Angel reminds me that compassion is a compass for how you treat people. Compassion is essential in navigating a journey and learning to love yourself. And standing up for my pledge brother, I was also, in a way, standing up for myself. It was one of the first times I chose authenticity over comfort, embracing my own truth even in a difficult situation. That experience taught me an important lesson, that compassion both for others and for ourselves goes hand in hand with the journey for self-love. Self-love has never been my strong suit. It becomes especially difficult when you feel like a target. That feeling intensifies when your identity is openly attacked. One example that comes to mind, something that's seemingly as simple as the flags on the wall during LGBTQ History Month. It's one of my favorite traditions, and it's placing rainbow flags out on the mall, creating a visible rainbow road that symbolizes queer visibility on campus. But every year, without fail, I open Yik Yak and I see homophobic comments about the flags. It's not just the comments themselves that sting, though they do, it's the fact that people who post them get to hide behind a screen. They get to stay invisible while attacking those of us who are simply trying to celebrate who we are. In these moments, it feels like visibility becomes a double-edged sword. You want to be seen, but being seen makes you a target. There's a strange paradox in that visibility. On the one hand, it feels empowering to see the flags out there, to know that we are here and that we matter. But on the other hand, it reminds me how easily that visibility can be negative. It's like being proud of who you are, but constantly looking over your shoulder, always that someone might tear you down simply for being yourself. The truth is, most things that we hate about ourselves are the things that society teaches us to hate. We're willing to see ourselves through the lens of others' discomfort or ignorance. The journey to self-love is about unlearning this imposed shame, reclaiming our identities, and saying, I don't have to hide or hate myself because others are uncomfortable with who I am. The journey towards self-love isn't something that we have to take alone. When you grow, you can bring people with you. While it's deeply personal, it's also influenced by the communities we find ourselves in. Sometimes it's through the people we support and challenge us that we discover new ways to love ourselves. That's why I've come to realize in my involvement in Shout. Every person you meet offers a new perspective, helping you understand different ways of thinking, living, and loving. Whether it's a shared experience or something completely different from your own, the members of Shout broaden my understanding of the world and myself. Growth creates a ripple effect. When you grow, you inspire others to grow alongside with you. When you learn to love and accept yourself, you create space for others to do the same. This mutual exchange of support and understanding is what I believe makes growth so profound. And it's not just about big, grand gestures. It's the small moments, too. A conversation in the hallway, an event you attend, or something as simple as listening to queer voices. Growth happens in these moments when you allow yourself to be open and vulnerable and willing to learn from others. Shout has given me that space. As I come to the end of my talk, I want to empathize the profound power of community in shaping our identities and experiences. My journey through self-discovery as a queer Black man has taught me that growth doesn't happen in isolation. Sometimes it's something we have to cultivate together. Through my involvement with Shout, I've learned that every moment of vulnerability, every time I've opened up about who I am, has led me to find support in unexpected places. These connections remind me that I'm not alone in my struggles and my triumphs. Each shared story, each act of compassion helps us break down the walls of judgment and misunderstanding that society often erects. I encourage you all to seek out and surround yourself with people to empower you, to be the best versions of yourself, those who challenge your perspectives, celebrate your uniqueness, and love you unconditionally for exactly who you are. In return, strive to be that person for others. Offer your compassion and understanding to those around you. Recognize that everyone is navigating their own complexities, so as you leave here today, think about how you contribute to this collective growth and how you can be intentional in your relationships and actions. Together, let's continue to make Wabash a place that accepts everyone and honors our shared differences. Thank you.
Good morning, Wabash. Good morning. Before I begin, I want to start by thanking the Spinks Club for inviting Shout to speak today. It's an honor to have this platform. A special shout out to my Ryan brothers. Love you guys. I also want to say thank you to Shout for letting me represent us today, as well as providing a safe space for me and other queer individuals on campus. A shout out to my Kappa Sigma brothers. Being a part of this fraternity has been a privilege, and I'm proud of how much we've grown. Love y'all. And lastly, to the two people who have pushed me harder than anything else. I would not be here today if it wasn't for you guys. I love you, Javian. I love you, Lewis. Today, I'll be talking about the types of support the queer community encounters, both on campus and beyond, while focusing specifically on the kind of support that makes the most impact. This speech isn't meant to criticize, but to share my experiences, foster understanding, and encourage growth and supporting one another. I will take you through my personal journey at Wabash, highlighting the different kinds of people and support I've encountered, focusing on 3 forms of queer support: allies, accomplices, and finally, assassins. Through my journey, I will illustrate the different levels each of these supports provides. Again, the goal of my talk isn't to critique the support we receive, because all forms of support are important and appreciated. However, I do ask that you listen with an open mind and an open heart as I explore how we can break down homophobic culture on campus and provide the most effective support for our queer brothers. By the end of the speech, I hope to have shown you why we need people who will actively stand with us and stand for us. To begin, let me take you back to where it all started, before I ever came to Wabash. It's been so long, I don't remember my exact gay awakening. Maybe it was Peter from the Hunger Games. But honestly, I remember being more obsessed with how confident Katniss was with her femininity in that movie. I remember playing Justice Leagues and Mortal Kombat with my siblings and always wanting to be the girl. Whether it was Wonder Woman or Katana, something was desirable about their femininity. The point of the game was to win, but for me, it wasn't about winning. It was about which character allowed me to express a part of myself I didn't fully yet understand. Looking back, I realized this was a subtle fight with myself, a battle of embracing femininity while also trying to hide it. Every time I picked a female character, I felt freedom. But that was quickly overshadowed by the remarks from my cousins asking why I would always choose a girl character. I would lie to them, saying that it was because she was the strongest, but deep down, I knew it wasn't about that. It wasn't about the strength. It was about a battle for self-expression. I felt a sense of joy and happiness when I chose those characters, which was quickly overshadowed with guilt and embarrassment. Questions such as why a boy was picking a girl character, and I found myself asking the same questions. This was the start of something deeper, a growing self-loathing. I began to question why I was different, why I wasn't like my brothers, while they were busy imagining themselves being Peeta from the Hunger Games. I didn't want to be the guy who ended up with the girl. I wanted to be Katniss. I wanted to be powerful, embrace my femininity, and maybe, just maybe, also end up with Peeta. But this was about more than just my sexuality. It was about being able to express my identity. I wanted the freedom to express what made me me and to embrace the things that brought me joy. And yet, throughout my childhood, the battle of self-expression never ended. I found small pockets of expression, moments where I could be myself, but those moments were never enough. They were fast and constantly overshadowed with embarrassment and fear of being seen as different. This isn't just my story. It's a story of hundreds of other boys, some who have faced and others who are still facing the same battles I have. Some of those boys are sitting in this room here today. They're the ones, like me, who haven't felt comfortable being their true selves because of the comments, the jokes, the homophobic culture that we are all part of. When you hear a homophobic joke, how do you respond? Do you speak up? And when the doors close, does your reaction stay the same? Whether public or private, your voice matters. Because the truth is, you don't know who's listening. And regardless, homophobia is wrong. You don't know who in that room might be bi, gay, or even questioning. But your silence sends a message that being gay is something to hide, something to be ashamed of. Silence isn't good. It reinforces that message just as much as the joke itself. Regardless, homophobia should have no space anywhere, and the truth is, there are more of us right here on campus who feel silenced and afraid, and it's how you respond, especially when the door is closed, that will make all the difference. As I reflect on this part of my life, I have realized two things. First, while it wasn't my cousins' or siblings' intention to hurt me, their curiosity about why I would choose a girl character reflected the societal stigma around boys and being feminine. It told me it was not okay for me to be feminine, or at the very least, pick a more feminine character. This isn't their fault. As kids, we learn from our surroundings, what society shows us, and what our parents teach us. And this leads me to my second point. Society normalizes certain traits, roles, identities, like heterosexuality, so early on that we don't even question it. From a young age, we're taught what's normal and what's not. Think about the cartoons, video games, books we grew up with. How often did they feature a queer character as the hero, the strong figure, the ones who led the story? The lack of queer representation in media has created a gap between what we see and the reality of our world. The LGBTQ+ community are a significant part of our society, but the media rarely reflects that. It sends a message about what's normal and what's not. These messages, though subtle, shape our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. They tell us that straight is a default, what's right and normal, while being gay, queer, or anything outside of that norm is different, abnormal, or even wrong. Society frames heterosexuality as the standard, and anything else is either erased or cast in a negative light. And this is how the idea of being gay is something wrong is introduced into our minds from such a young age. For me, choosing a female character wasn't about strength. It was about finding a way to express a part of myself that I couldn't see reflected in the world around me. And when society only shows one type of story, one kind of identity as being right or normal, it makes that journey of self-expression and self-acceptance that much harder. And this isn't just my experience. It's the reality of countless of people who are marginalized or different in a world that often prioritizes conformity. The fight didn't stop after I put down the controller. It continued for years as I fought with my identity, trying to suppress parts of myself that I hadn't yet learned to embrace. I thought coming to Wabash would change all of that. I told myself, this is it. You're away from home now. No one knows you, and you can be whoever you want. But I was wrong. I was naive, thinking distance from home would give me the confidence to live in my truth. When my family dropped me off, I felt a little spark of excitement. As the second they left, I'd magically become more comfortable with who I was. I thought I'd suddenly be free to live as myself without fear or shame, but the truth is, the distance didn't make me more confident. The air didn't magically make me more accepting of myself. The hard truth was that I hadn't yet accepted myself fully. I didn't want to be kicked out, so therefore I didn't come out. But then what was holding me back here at Wabash? I remember an earlier moment during orientation when I overheard a gay joke. We were doing a group activity, and someone wasn't doing well in the activity. Someone commented, "Ha, you're so gay," as if that was something to be ashamed of. Everyone laughed, treating it just like another casual comment. But it wasn't about the joke itself. It was about the fact that using gay as an insult felt so normal and acceptable. No one questioned it. No one paused to think about the harms those words carried. That moment hit me hard because it reinforced the reality that I wasn't completely safe in a place where I'd hoped to be free, showing me that I would have to deal with uncomfortable situations where my identity could be a punchline. This subtle messaging made it harder to express myself, suggesting that gay was something to be laughed at or looked down upon. However, throughout my journey at Wabash, I've been able to work through those internal struggles and battles, and finally express myself openly. I've encountered 3 different types of support for queer individuals, those being allies, accomplices, and assassins. Even though self-expression and self-acceptance is a personal struggle, having people who will actively fight against homophobic culture makes those journeys easier, allowing people to believe it's okay to be themselves on campus. Now, I'm going to dive deeper into what each of these roles looks like. What I've realized, and hopefully you will too, is simple. Allies are a start, accomplices help, but if we want to create a lasting change, we need assassins. Those who are ready to stand up, speak out, and act without doubt. It's not just about showing up when it's easy, it's about being bold when it's hard. I want you to picture yourself in this journey, not just imagining my story, but thinking about someone in your own life. Someone a part of the queer community, whether it's me, someone you know, or even someone you've never met. I want you to start by picturing yourself standing behind that person you've imagined. Allies may stand behind you and offer support, which is an important first step, but it's not enough. You might call yourself an ally, pat yourself on the back, and feel good about it. Allies are often the ones who say, "I love gay people," but disappear when things get hard and serious. They show up when it's convenient, not when it's critical. While being an ally is a good place to start, it's far from where we need to end up. I've encountered more allies than anything else. Let me walk you through one of my experiences with allies. During my sophomore year here at Wabash, I experienced probably one of the first real homophobic incidents after coming out. My fraternity has a tradition during Christmas time where we write roasts and put them on a Christmas tree. Someone wrote a rose for one of the brothers that said, "Blank was a gay black man, period." That night was supposed to be fun, filled with lighthearted roast, where we made fun of each other in a loving way, but it was taken too far when someone's roast reduced their identity to a punchline. How was being gay or black a roast? There's absolutely nothing wrong with either of those identities. However, most people laughed, and some just sat there awkwardly. After this experience, this brother and I spoke up in chapter and received plenty of support, even snaps of approval. Even though I didn't realize this at the time, these were allies, showing support when it was easy, when it was convenient. It wasn't until later that year I recognized this. When the F slur was used in a similar situation, the room went silent. Instead of laughter, the room was filled with awkwardness and silence. Nobody raised their voice. Why? Because it wasn't convenient. Unlike the time in the chapter when it was convenient for them to snap and show their support, speaking up at this moment would put them in an awkward situation. This convenience also stems from the homophobic culture on campus, where speaking up about homophobic incident might cause people to face backlash. At this level, the risk of social discomfort outweighs the desire to support the queer community. And that's the reality of allies. Their support is conditional, based on convenience and ease of the moment. But we need more than that. We need support that isn't just about what's comfortable, but what's necessary. We're supporting the queer community come back on me negatively or positively. Allies support us, but there's a distance between us. To make a true change, they need to move up. Change requires more than a silent approval. It demands a loud, unapologetic action. So let's challenge each other to be more than just allies. Now, let's shift our focus from allies to the next level of support, accomplices. I want you to go back to that image. You're standing behind that queer individual. Now, I want you to imagine yourself moving forward. I want you to picture yourself moving from behind them to moving next to them. Accomplices stand beside you on this journey, supporting you through every risk. They don't just show up when it's easy, they show up when it's hard as well. They've earned that trust, and they're always eager to listen, learn, and work toward change. These are the people who, when things get tough, you know you can rely on them. The Shout protest last spring is one of the clearest examples I have of what it means to be an accomplice. When the homophobic incident occurred at Dell, where slurs and hate speech were written on their house, Shout organized a peaceful protest to demand action. I remember feeling nervous leading up to it, wondering if anyone would show up, but people showed up. These were the people who had consistently shown up, who had earned trust by standing with us, not just when it was easy, but when there was risk involved. I walked into the library that day, and I saw faces that made me feel loved and supported. I saw the Wabash brothers, including some from my fraternity, standing right there. One thing that struck me was the presence of my fraternity's leaders. Seeing them there didn't just speak volumes about their character, it also spoke volumes about the progress we were making as a fraternity. Throughout the time I've known them, they've always been an ally, showing support and assuring me that they would be there whenever I needed them. However, this was the first time I saw them supporting the LGBTQ+ community without having to discuss the importance of doing so. They were finally taking a stand with us, moving from allies to accomplices. While we haven't always been perfect in our support for the LGBTQ+ community, this was a moment of growth. We're learning, we're figuring out how to be better, and how to support this community more actively. And that's something I want to mention to you all today. I don't expect every single person to leave this room as a perfect individual. However, I ask you to leave this room being aware that we can all change as we foster a safer environment for this community. I hope that just as I saw it grow for my brothers, I can help you see the importance of continuing to improve your support for this community. I also want to make something clear. Not everyone in that room was an accomplice. The protest was an example of how accomplices react. That doesn't mean there weren't allies or even assassins in that room. However, this moment was reactionary in nature and did not represent the sort of proactive work that characterizes an assassin. Chow decided to speak out against the hate crime that had occurred, and accomplices followed and supported that protest. Accomplices wait until someone else speaks up first. Then they follow. While this is an important step beyond allyship and good support that is needed, it's not the most ideal version of support. The truth is, while accomplices are valuable, they're not always going to be there for those critical moments when the community needs someone to step up before the harm has already been done. It's good that they show up when asked, but we need those who will act before we even have to ask. That's where assassins come in. I once again ask you to close your eyes and imagine where you left off. You're standing next to that individual you've imagined. Now, I want you to imagine yourself moving in front of them. When I talk about assassins in my speech, I need you to forget what we normally think about when it comes to assassins. Typically, when we think of assassins, we think about individuals associated with violence, perhaps doing this in the shadows to take down their target. But that's not the kind of assassin I'm talking about here. Forget that definition. In my speech, assassins symbolize those who are fearless when it comes to advocating for the LGBTQ+ community. Assassins are the ones who stand in front of you when you are at your most vulnerable, giving you time to rest. They don't speak for you, but they protect you by speaking up when something's wrong. When they see something wrong, they don't wait for you to call it out. They do it themselves. And they don't do it for recognition or praise, but because it's the right thing to do, and they fundamentally believe that it's the right thing to do. During Scholar Honors Weekend, I was talking with some prospects at my house. One of the guys commented with homophobic undertones, saying that he was from the gay part of his state, in a negative way, as if it was a bad thing. I was taken out of this conversation, immediately feeling the weight of what was said. I was so used to letting comments like that slide, but before I could even react, one of my pledge brothers cut him off. No, we don't do that here, he said without hesitation. He didn't wait for me to say something. He stood in front of me, speaking up because he knew it was wrong. He didn't do it for recognition. When I thanked him later, he didn't even realize what he had done. But to me, it meant everything. This is what I mean when I talk about assassins. They don't wait for approval or validation. They act because they know it's needed. At this point in my life, I felt comfortable in my sexuality. I knew what I liked, and I liked what I liked. However, I struggled with how to express myself. I wasn't ready to embrace more feminine qualities, like painting my nails, letting my voice sound more feminine when it naturally wanted to, or even speaking in general. Yet this moment made me realize that there were people who would protect me for who I was. Looking back at my childhood, as I remember playing Mortal Kombat with my siblings and choosing katana, I felt ashamed of picking a female character, not because I truly felt that way, but because of the questions my siblings and cousins would ask. I was happier choosing katana than I was even about winning the game. But those repeated questions forced me to push my feelings down, growing my internal battle with self-expression. If I had someone like my pledge brother back then, it would have made those experiences much easier. Hearing him cut off my siblings and cousins with a simple, "And what about it?" would have given me some reassurance I needed to be more feminine. This struggle persisted throughout my childhood and continues into college. Having someone speak up for me during those low moments in my life would have made my journey feel less isolating. Instead of spending sleepless nights with my thoughts and tears, I could have known that someone was in my corner. So I return to my earlier point. We need assassins. They don't just stand with you, they stand for you, providing the space to feel seen and protected. Imagine if every queer individual knew they had someone in the corner, ready to speak up before they even had to ask. We don't need just allies, and even accomplices aren't enough. We need assassins. We need people who don't just wait, people who don't just stand by or stand with us, but people who stand in front of us when we need them the most. So, I leave you, Wabash, with this call to action. Because I know if any place is able to accomplish this, it's Wabash. Be more than an ally. Be more than an accomplice. Be an assassin for those around you. The road ahead isn't easy. As you move forward, you will continue to meet members of the LGBTQ+ community, not just here at Wabash, but in all areas of your life. You will be called upon to support your brothers. The challenges you face in supporting these individuals may not always be simple, but the key is to start learning now, rather than later. It's better to begin to understanding how to show up and stand with others while you're here than to wait until life puts you in a situation where the stakes are higher. This is the time to build those skills and develop the mindset so that when it matters most, you're ready to act. This story isn't about pity or pain. I'm not asking for your sympathy. I have accepted who I am, and I moved on for those who won't. But if you can't accept and support me, then do it for our brothers who can't yet embrace themselves, who drown themselves with tears at night, and who might leave this place never showing anyone their true selves. Be an assassin, stand up, speak out, and be the reason someone could live in their true selves. Thank you.
Stand up for a little bit. Let's keep applauding. Two great chapel talks. All right, I just got something real quick for everybody. We just heard two amazing speeches from two amazing people, and there's things we can learn. There's things we can do. There's actions we can take as soon as we leave this room. In light of what happened, we all know it was something serious. It was something to be frowned upon. It was something we're not proud of. But what's most important is how we move forward and how we respond and how we change. Now with that, there's an underlying evil that may or may not be Yik Yak. I know it's how we get our news. I know it's how we feel the temperature of what campus is. But I implore you guys, before you hit send, before you draft, before you hastily run to the app to say what you want to say, embrace what we learn here, and that's brotherhood. Brotherhood extends past your room, past your fraternity house, past your friends. Brotherhood is all of us. Everyone that's here in this chapel, everyone that walks the bricks, just like you and I do. It's not just your close friends. So embrace brotherhood, talk to someone, face to face. Because what you send behind a shroud of anonymity on a screen can hurt people like you don't even know. So before you hit send, before you draft something up, be a Wabash man and talk to somebody face to face first. That's it. Thank you so much for being here. The attendance was great. And give one more round of applause for two motivating, amazing individuals.
Now will you all please rise and join me in singing Old Wabash. Da 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 da.